Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So, I think I've mentioned this before, but I have a soft spot for old anime, also like old video games, just things like that. It just reminds me of my childhood and it makes me feel all soft and fuzzy and warm inside. But I would say that the holy trinity for me when I was growing up was Pokemon, Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning when I was literally 6 to watch Sailor Moon and Pokemon before school. So I was just very committed to these things. So who from the Holy Trinity are we doing today? Bulma from Dragon Ball. Bulma is a character that I've always really liked. She's beautiful, smart, and speaks her mind, and I think that those are some really cool things. So I'm gonna be making her. I've been wanting to make a Bulma doll for a while, to the point where I actually bought this head off of AliExpress because I thought it looked like her. And I've been putting it off because I've just had other projects and collabs. But when I saw the Dolly Geek post on Instagram an open invitation for a retro anime collab, I was like, today's the day. Bulma, here we come. I think each participant in this collab did a really good job, and I'm gonna link everyone down in the description box. I definitely recommend checking out their channels, and this is my favorite collab ever. Okay, I like a lot of the collabs I've been in, but I'm just a total anime geek. But the first person we have here is Dolly Mixtures, who did Motoko Kusanagi from Ghost in a Shell. Then we have Dolly Crafter, who did Chibi Usa from Sailor Moon. Telly Dollies did Mima Kurigo from Perfect Blue. The Dolly Geek did Athena from Saint Seiya. The Hatter Dolls did Alita from Battle Angel Alita. And Stefu Doll did Ryoko from Tenchi Muyo. I love all of these dolls, so please go check them out. Again, they're linked down below. I chose this head because the ears sticking out and large forehead really reminded me of Bulma. I was just like, match made in heaven. I'm using teal acrylic yarn for her hair. Bulma's hair seems to sort of fluctuate a little bit. It's either teal, blue, or purple, but teal seems to maybe be the most common. I'm not actually sure, it fluctuates a lot. But I am just rerooting the yarn around her hairline. I'm going for the Bulma look where she has a high ponytail and a pink shirt on, so that's why I'm only rerooting around her hairline. Since this doll doesn't have any holes in her head, I'm taking a pretty big needle and I'm just stabbing some holes in so that I have something to put my reroot tool into. To make my life significantly easier, I am not rerooting this whole doll's head. That is just not the business. I'm going to be creating wefts. So I'm taking some, I guess this is generic brand Elmer's glue. I just call this Elmer's glue. I'm taking a little bit of that and I am putting that on the top of the weft and then letting it dry. She a little baldy, but she a baddie. So we have to paint her scalp teal. I completely forgot about this. I keep forgetting about this lately. It just makes the hair look thicker, and if there's any bald spots, it's not as noticeable with the paint. Okay, so for her hair, I am taking the wefts that I made. I'm putting some of that Elmer's or generic brand Elmer's glue down, and then I'm putting the weft down and flipping it over. I'm doing this all around her part line. I'm doing a row of that. The next row of hair, I glued it on normally, so I didn't flip it over. And this gives me the desired volume that I want for her ponytail. By the way, guys, something that I learned the hard way. The other day I tried to create a high slick back ponytail with nylon doll hair, and it was by far one of the most annoying things that I've done in my whole doll customizing journey. So if you guys want to do a high ponytail, do yourselves a favor and use yarn. The top of her head was a bit flat, so I took some yarn and I put that on the middle of her head just to create a kind of bump it look. Bulma's ponytail is, I don't know if messy is the right word, but she has some flyaway bangs and I'm pulling some of the strands forward to recreate that. Once I got the desired look I wanted, I just tied her hair back with an elastic. I am so here for this fluffy, voluminous ponytail. Ponytail queen. On to the face up. So I spray the doll 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray, and wearing a respirator mask. That's what gives me the paper-like quality so that I can draw on the face. And then we get started. So I went into this knowing that I was not going to do an anime face up. It just wasn't going to happen. I've tried to draw anime before and it looks real busted. So I wanted to make Bulma in my style. I'd say one of the things that stands out the most on Bulma's face are her big round blue eyes. So I knew that I wanted to give her really big round blue eyes. If you look at a lot of Bulma art, her eyes are like very pointed in the middle, like she's kind of cross-eyed, but like it works because it's anime. And I tried to do that at first, but I've mentioned this before on my channel. My style is not realism, but I think it leans more towards realism than like a cartoon style. So when I tried to do it, she just looked cross-eyed and like it just didn't look great. So I was like, we're not gonna do that. I just made her irises really big and kind of pointing a little bit towards the middle, but not like a cross-eyed look. I blushed her face with pinks, purples, reds, blues, and browns. To give her eyelids and her lower eye a kind of 3D effect, I am shading in the outer portion and the inner portion of the lid and the lower eye with brown, a very deep brown, and then I'm going around the top of the lid with a lighter brown. I'm kind of leaving the middle a little bit blank. We're going to be going in with more highlights in that area, and that creates a sort of 3D rounded effect to her eye. I think sometimes I look at the footage on my first and second layer and I'm like, Jesus, that looks intense. But something to keep in mind with doll repaints is that as you spray the doll, everything gets dulled down. And by the time I'm done the doll, like all of the shading, like that right there, like that looks like I gave her a straight up soul patch. But by the time the doll's done, it is way less intense. With a peach pencil, I color in her waterline. The blue! I love the blue. I love adding blue tones to the skin, okay? Let me live my blue life. I add a ton of them. I add them all over the forehead, the brow bone, the inner corner, her cheeks, her lips, her chin, all of it. I love blue. This doll got a bit of a 12 head, which to be honest, Bulma also does, but I wanted to contour it a little bit, so I used a dark peach and brought that around her forehead. Veins! I love veins. Everybody get veins. I don't care what your complexion is, who you is, you getting veins around your eyeballs and your forehead. So I'm using a light blue pencil and I'm just adding branch-like pencil marks around her forehead and her eyes and her chin. I really like giving my doll's lips a bit of a gradient, so I'm taking a Q-tip and red pastel, and I'm tapping that on the very middle of the lips. Time to color in her eyes. So I wanted to give her eyes a gradient, so I'm taking a darker blue and putting that towards the upper part of her iris, and then a lighter blue at the bottom. I created a highlight on the middle of her waterline as well as her inner tear duct with a light nude pencil. She needs some lip wrinkles. I love lip wrinkles. I love the weirdest of fun dolls, but I'm just adding some lines on her upper and lower lip. I'm beginning the initial stages of highlights with a white pan pastel on the brow bones, inner corner, under the eyes, nostrils, and chin. I think that if you're going to get any pan pastels, I recommend getting highlight shades, so like nudes, light browns, whites, things like that, because they're, I mean, not necessarily light brown, but some highlight shades are hard to find pigmented in pastels, and the pan pastels are like excellent, like they just really show up for highlights. I went over the gradient that I created on her eyes with pencils, with pastels. This just makes it blend easier and it shows up a little bit more pigmented. Oh, Sona Mia. Bulma has bad eyebrows. What? I said Bulma has bad eyebrows. They're just like very round. Where the fuck is my brick? Nope. Nope. I stand by my statement. I just don't think Bulma's eyebrows are the business. I'm sorry about it. I just love me a thick, straight eyebrow, and she has really thin, curved eyebrows. I did stick to the source material and I made them curved, but I thickened them up a little bit. One of my favorite things about this sculpt is that she has teeth, so I colored them in with a white pencil. I'm beginning to add the more intense stages of highlights with a white watercolor pencil around her eyes and her lips. To emphasize her little wrinkly lips, I added some lines of pink to her lower lips. With a deep blue watercolor pencil, I added some circles in the middle of her iris for her pupils. I really like the look of like a highlighted, kind of watery looking waterline, so I took a metallic rose gold pencil and I added that to the inner portion of her waterline as well as the outer portion. I wet my white, I can't say this, I wet my white watercolor pencil and added a bit of white to the whites of her eyes and around her eyes and her lips. I'm sorry, that was like a couple of takes. I was like, why can't I say wet white watercolor? I really like adding a ring of highlight around my doll's irises, so I took a really light blue pencil and I added a ring around her iris with that, and then on the left side I added a bit of metallic blue paint so that it's kind of like a metallic blue fading into a lighter blue. Onto the eyebrows. So I took a dark blue watercolor pencil and I'm just adding in the brow hair. I feel like with brow hair, a good rule is to have eyebrow hair kind of like sticking straight up towards the inner portion of the eyebrow, and then as it gets to the middle / outer portion of the eyebrow, start curving the brow hair to the side. I feel like that's a pretty basic explanation, but it's sort of a good rule, at least for me. Eyebrows are kind of hard because, I don't know, I feel like when I first started doing repaints, my eyebrows look real busted, but I just kind of looked at a bunch of eyebrows. I studied some brows, you know? Maybe that's why I feel so passionate about Bulma's eyebrows. I tap one of my tiniest brushes into some black pastel and I stamp that on the top of the iris. I really like giving my doll's pupils a metallic effect, whether that's with Pearl X pigment or metallic watercolors. In this case, I chose Pearl X pigment. I just took a Q-tip and stamped that onto the middle of the pupil. With a lot of my repaints, I add lines going into the iris with white, and I did that with this doll, but I did it less so. I did that because the iris was just really big and it was hitting a lot of the top of the waterline, so it just looked a little strange. So I took a little bit of white, and for the middle of that iris, I just tapped a bit of white, like kind of speckles there, and I really like how it turned out. I think it's kind of cute. Again, for Bulma, I want her to have a very like big-eyed, wide-eyed look, so I'm giving her quite a few lashes and they're sticking straight up. They're like very, I guess, perky. I don't know if that's the right word, but they're not too voluminous or thick. I've mentioned this many times in the past, but one of my favorite steps is adding extensions onto some of the outer lashes with a rose gold pencil. I just think it looks cute. I want the lashes to be as dark as they can get because it just really draws your eye into the eye area. So I'm going over the lashes that I put down with pencil with wet black watercolor. I go in with a dark blue watercolor paint to fully define each brow hair that she has. Then I take a black pencil and I concentrate that on the outer portion of the eyebrow. And the last step that I do is I add a light teal metallic watercolor paint to the front eyebrow hairs. This is to sort of create a gradient happening. I've been really finding that I like putting metallic watercolor in my doll's eyebrows, specifically in the front. I know a lot of people highlight doll brows with white, and I've tried that before, but it looks a little much for me. Like, I don't know, I think I'm not doing it right, like, because I've seen other people do it and I'm like, oh my god, it looks so good, but when I do it, it just looks a little weird. And I feel like this gives me a sort of highlighted effect that gives other people, but it's not as intense for me. I added some flicks of dark blue watercolor paint to the outer portion of her lashes. Last but definitely not least, I took tons of macro Pearl X pigment and I put it all over her face. I added a bit of Vallejo gloss varnish to her lips. I used to add it to the eyes as well, but I don't anymore because I find that when you do that, it makes it more difficult to photograph dolls. She's done. She's the Bulma of my dreams. Love her so much. Like, I really do, actually. I trimmed her bangs with an X-Acto blade. Her bangs were like sticking up all crazy, so I took some pomade and put that into her bangs, and then I took a bit of saran wrap, wrapped it around her head, taped it in place, and left that for like a day and a half. Bulma has like 3 little poofs on her ponytail. I've seen people interpret it as braids. I at the time interpreted it as poofs. I guess braids actually probably make more sense. But I took a bit of wire and I wrapped it around her ponytail in 3 different sections to create these poofs. I at first used red, but then I decided it stood out a little bit too much and switched over to silver. For her body, I used an Obitsu body. I normally get them off of parabox.com if you guys are looking for some Obitsu bodies. Those are, I believe, the cheapest I've been able to find them. They're like 20 bucks, but I'll link that down in the description box. I blushed her body with the same tones that I used on her face. I also painted one of her hands brown because she has a glove on. I put her head back on, and I just really like this combination. Like, I like the proportions a lot. On to the clothes. So Bulma's outfit is relatively simple. She has a oversized pink t-shirt on, so I hemmed each one of the sides with some Fabri-Tac glue. I sewed the front and the back of the t-shirt together at the shoulders. For the sleeves, they're like really big, so to get that oversized look, I cut out really big sleeves and gather stitched the top and then sewed that in place. I sewed the t-shirt up the side seam, flipped it, and then sewed on some snaps on the back. It occurred to me that I probably could have sewn this like a normal t-shirt without the snaps, but I didn't, so whoopsie daisies. Bulma has her name written on her shirt because she's the queen, so I'm doing it first with a ballpoint pen. I'm just writing Bulma on some cotton white fabric, and then I'm going over the pen with black acrylic paint. I did put fray check all over the fabric, and then I cut it out all nice like with some scissors. I glued her name on her shirt with Fabri-Tac glue. Time to make Bulma's belt. So I bought a roll of this small, I mean, I guess they're just belts, but it's like a roll of them for dolls. And I bought a bunch of belt buckles, and I'm just sewing the belt fabric around the belt buckle to make a belt. Who would have thought? I picked this and a bunch of other doll sewing supplies up off of Etsy, which I will link the two sellers that I bought from down below if you guys are curious. In order to make the belt functional, I had to put a hole in it so that I could like loop the belt around. And I did that with my eyelet kit. It's just like a thing, and you hit it and it makes a hole, and it just worked perfectly for this. It was a perfect size. She got a belt, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I guess it's easy if you have the supplies to make a tiny doll belt. Bulma has a cute blue pouch on her belt, so I'm using this blue canvas fabric and I'm hemming each side of it. I actually lied. I did not hem one of the pieces of the smaller fabric. I didn't hem it because I wanted to fold it over, and I did that with my hair iron, and then I sewed that in place so that it would stand up. Oh my god, she has a little pouch moment. Look at that. It's Dragon Ball chic. Beautiful. I sewed her pouch in place on her belt. I initially wanted her pouch to be functional, but I couldn't figure out how to make it look believable and like lay flat against each other, so I just sewed it shut with this little blue oval thing. Her purple scarf was incredibly easy to make. Like, it was like so pleasant and so easy to make, so I just cut out this random shape. I don't know how to describe it, but it looks like this, and it's so that I can tie it around her neck. Onto the socks. So I took the strip of purple fabric and I hemmed the bottom down with some Fabri-Tac glue. After that was all dry, I cut a smaller bit of it off and sewed that into a tube. I flipped it and put it on her foot. I didn't make her like a real sock because I thought it would be a little bit too beefy underneath the shoe. The shoe that I'm using is the AliExpress Blythe shoes. If y'all don't know what those are, they're just like dollar shoes you can get off AliExpress, and I think they're pretty cute. They looked very, very, very similar to the shoes she had on, so I used those. Bulma has a little tiny baby wristband on, so I cut the littlest, tiniest strip of red fabric, folded that in half, sewed it in place, flipped it, and voila, you have a wristband. Time for her hair bow. I used the same fabric that I used on her wristband, and I originally tried to just like tie this around her hair and it looked awful. So I realized that I'm gonna have to kind of fake this bow. So I'm doing it in parts. I first cut a little piece of fabric and glued that in place. For the main part of the bow, I folded 2 pieces of fabric in towards the middle and sewed that in the middle, and then I pinched it so that it would have more of like a scrunched look and sewed that in place. I wrapped a bit of fabric around the middle to give the bow the middle part of the bow, the knot of the bow, I guess, and I glued that in place with hot glue. Now for the little dangly bits of the bow. So I took another strip of fabric and I pinched that at the top, sewed that in place, and then glued it in place onto her part that's on her ponytail. After the dangly bits were, I don't know if that's a very good name for it, but after they were glued in place, I glued the main part of her bow on top. Here it is. I think it looks like kind of sort of pretty believable, I think. I mentioned that she had a glove on earlier and has a big old chunky cuff, so I have to hem the bottom of it. Once that was all done, I folded the fabric in half and sewed it good side to good side and then flipped it. Time for the dragon radar. So I took some Sculpey, I think this is Sculpey, and I smushed it into a circle. I made the teeniest of tiniest noodles and I wrapped that around the circle. I made a fatter noodle and I cut a tiny piece of my fat noodle off and put that on the top. Put a little circle on top of that, and that makes the dragon radar button. I don't know, it looks like a stopwatch to me, but I made some little grooves in the button with a needle. I put my little stopwatch dragon radar into the oven, baked it, and now it's time to paint. So I know that the dragon radar looks very like bright silver, but I don't like bright silver. I don't know, I just never, like, I feel like whenever I've tried to paint it, it doesn't look right. So I painted it black first, and then I went on top with silver metallic paint. I painted the screen of the radar bright green, and I painted all the little small details of the radar off camera. So like the grid and the Dragon Balls and the little triangle that indicates where you are. I basically, so doing this grid was a little bit hard because it's like so small. So whenever I messed up, I just pop a little Dragon Ball on top. Now she's basically done, but we need to make a Dragon Ball. So I bought this sphere mold for UV resin off of Amazon, and I mixed some like UV resin and some orange ink and some Pearl-X pigment and mixed it all together, and I popped in my UV lamp, and I decided that I hated it. Well, I didn't hate it. I don't know what's going on with my resin lately. Okay, so I know that if you don't use a clear mold with UV resin, it doesn't like cure properly, but like this is obviously a clear mold and it just wasn't curing properly. I don't know why. I had it like in my UV lamp for like seriously like 10 minutes and it just was squishy. Like it wouldn't get very hard, and I had to sand this afterwards because the circles aren't perfect, so you kind of have to like shape them, you know. And I couldn't do that because it was still wet on the inside. So I kind of dug how these turned out, but I couldn't do anything with them because they were squishy resin things. Why are they squishy? I don't know what's happening. So I took a bead, a white bead, and I painted it orange. Once that orange was dry, I painted on top of that with some gold glittery paint and then some duochrome like orangey paint. For the Dragon Ball star, I took a star glitter that I have and glued it on top and then painted the glitter red. I filled in the bead holes with some epoxy sculpt, and oh my goodness, she's a Dragon Ball. Look at her, beauty, grace. Okay, so I'm done. This is Bulma. I love her. I'm just really happy I have a Bulma doll. I don't know, I've just known this show for like a really long time, and it feels cool when you got dolls of characters that you like. I am genuinely thinking about making a Vegeta doll to go with my Bulma doll. Let me know if you'd be interested in that. I could do that. Be kind of interesting for me. I like definitely 100% know the base I would use. I mean, honestly, I might make it even if nobody wants me to make it. But yeah, guys, so I had a really fun time making this doll. Oh, I'm also going to include a shot of this doll with my Lolita doll because they are the same base. And I think it's cool looking at dolls that are the same base when there's like a year apart. I don't know. I feel like it shows growth, and I like both of them. Like, I really still like my Lolita doll, but I feel like I like Bulma better, but I like them both, and they look quite different. So I'm going to show you guys that. And also, definitely, like I said earlier, check out all the videos in this collab. It was a really fun collab. This was a really fun doll for me to make. Like this video if you guys like this video. Subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having a beautiful day.